I've been running both cold email campaigns and cold LinkedIn campaigns side by side together for months now, and the results might just surprise you. So we're sending 5,700 cold emails every single day and 1,100 LinkedIn connection requests daily, tracking every single metric, and one platform is consistently outperforming the other, but not in the way that you'd expect. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the real numbers from both channels and showing you exactly why the best approach isn't always choosing one over the other. So now I'm going to give you the head-to-head on exactly what the numbers are for cold email and exactly what the numbers are for LinkedIn, starting with cold email. So these are the 4 active campaigns we're running on cold email right now, and as you can see, these are results from the last 4 weeks. So I'm going to show you the campaign that's basically representing an average of our cold email campaigns, which is the Hypertide campaign. And overall, we get about a 2% total reply rate, and the positive replies we're getting from that are about half. So overall in this campaign, we're getting about 0.9% of people to positively reply, which means every 1,000 emails we send to new people, we're going to be able to get one person to positively reply from this specific campaign. Now, if we take all our campaigns, we combine them, it ends up being about 0.7% of people actually positively reply. So those are what our initial numbers look like at the scale that we're at, sending 5,700 cold emails a day. A third of those are to new people. So we're sending 1,900 new contacts every single day. And overall, from that, if we take 0.7% of that, what's that going to be? Times 1,900 is going to end up being about 13 positive replies that we get every single day. So that's how many positive replies we're getting from our initial email. Now, one thing that's important to note is that if you are at a lower level of scale and you're not sending as many cold emails as we are, then your metrics are going to be a lot higher because your niche hasn't going to see your message as much, and so on and so forth. So those are our numbers. Now, from those 0.7% of positive replies, about 40% of those people actually book. So we have 13 people positively replying, and that converts into about 6 appointments per day just from cold email, using this just a couple of campaigns. The main benefit of cold email, right, is that what we're able to do is it's extremely, extremely easy to scale. So the reason why that is because cold email has been around extremely, extremely long time ago. And there's a lot of developed software specifically to be used for cold email. So there's a lot of done-for-you service providers that will set up all your inboxes for you, making them super easy to replace. Now you can get pre-warmed accounts that we have specific partners and providers that give us pre-warmed accounts, so that when we have deliverability issues that are super easy to spot now with the tools nowadays, you can instantly replace those. So we always have perfect deliverability. And we're also able to see everything and what's going on extremely, extremely easily, and then also manage everything inside of one inbox because the softwares are so developed nowadays. So the best part about email is truly because the ease at which you're able to scale. The problem with that, though, comes the other side of that is that it's easier for everybody else to do it. And what that means is there's going to be more competition, and the percentage of people that are going to reply, like I've shown you, are significantly lower than you could get on other platforms. So I'm going to show you LinkedIn in a second here and how LinkedIn can stack up to cold email. All right, so as you can see here, this is now our LinkedIn database and our LinkedIn tracker. So what we're doing is just the last 5 weekdays, we've sent over 4,000 connection requests sent. We got about 20% of those to actually accept our connection request, which means we can actually message those people. So we have 800 messages being sent. And then from those approximately 750, 800 messages being sent, we have about 30% of people that positively reply, which you'll notice is significantly higher than it is on email. In total of the people that we send messages to, about total 2% of people book. So about 1 in the 15 of these people book. And I'm going to walk through kind of the messaging sequence we use and why the metrics are a little bit different than they are on cold email. So basically, what we do with LinkedIn, it's a lot more of a networky style platform. People are more open to have conversations on LinkedIn than they are on email, just because of the nature of the platform, right? So by that standard, we're going to have a significantly higher positive reply rate. Now, with that comes the other side of being more of a social platform, is it's less salesy, so to speak, or people are going to be less likely to actually book a call from the people who are interested. But if you take the overall amount of people who book a call versus on email, it's significantly higher. So for every about 100 messages we sent on LinkedIn at our level of scale, again, this is always going to be higher when you're doing less amount of volume, but we get about 2% of people who we send a message to actually book a call, right? So that's on top of the 3,000 emails that we're also able to send, and we get about a 5% positive reply rate on that. So in total, from these 3,800 messages that we're actually sending, we get about, in-mail booking rate is slightly lower than that. So we get about 5% of people to actually book a call. So we end up getting about 50 appointments per week because of this, which is about 10 appointments a day. So overall, the real benefit of LinkedIn is is also kind of the real negative of LinkedIn, is it's very difficult to scale, right? So the reason why it's difficult to scale is because the infrastructure for LinkedIn isn't as sophisticated. LinkedIn is cracking a lot harder down on accounts that are fake, that we have a lot of fake accounts that are working really well because we have specific providers that most people don't have access to, which is something that we also give our clients so they can, get 30 LinkedIn accounts to send this amount of volume. And because of that, we're able to enter into an inbox that is significantly less saturated than an email inbox and get significantly higher positive reply rates because these people on this platform haven't received as many messages, which is why we're able to book a significantly higher percentage of people, which is why ultimately we're able to book more appointments from LinkedIn than email specifically, just because there's less competition on the platform and because we have such a dialed infrastructure inside of our company with the vendors that we use for LinkedIn accounts and with the messaging that we're using inside of LinkedIn. So overall, LinkedIn is going to allow you to have higher conversion rates, but it's harder to do as much volume, and email is easier to scale, but you're not going to have as high conversion rates. Now, ultimately, what's better? And the answer is it's better to use them both. And here's why. So ultimately, the more touch points, and this has been studied by a million different companies, but the more touch points and the more locations a potential client sees you on, the higher the likelihood is that they are going to purchase. If they see you from email, they have a whatever percent chance to reply. And if they see you on LinkedIn, they have a whatever percent chance to reply. But if they see your company on email and they decide, you know what, I've seen a lot of companies, I'm not interested. If they see another message from you that's coming from LinkedIn and they recognize the business, the brand recognition of that interaction is going to increase the likelihood that they will reply as if they only saw you on one specific channel. So the benefit of using both channels isn't necessarily just to increase the total amount of messages you're sending so you can increase the amount of bookings you're getting that way, but it's also going to increase the percentage of people in your niche that are going to be interested in what you do because they're recognizing your brand. And this is ultimately how you're able to increase the conversion rate on all your different channels by outreaching on multiple different platforms. So in a second here, I'm going to show you our omni-channel follow-up sequence that we use on top of the LinkedIn and email outreach we do to get the most amount of replies and most amount of interest possible. So this is one of the SOPs and one of the systems that we give to our clients inside of our paid program, which is the Myriad follow-up system. And this is specifically used for LinkedIn. So essentially what this does is once someone is interested in the LinkedIn message and they positively reply to our initial message, which I showed you before is about 20 to 30% of people on average, we're going to put them through an intensive follow-up campaign that we use multiple different platforms on for a few reasons. So number one, the brand recognition thing that I talked about before, reaching out to people on multiple different platforms is always going to be beneficial, right? And that's what our follow-up system is built around. But the other thing is that the average session time of a user on LinkedIn is anywhere between 7.5 and 14 minutes. And what that means, if they reply to your message and 14 minutes goes by at the very maximum and they don't book a call, the likelihood that they are going to come back to you tomorrow when they check LinkedIn again and find you in their inbox is very, very, very slim. What that means is we need to contact them outside of LinkedIn if we want to book them in with the highest likelihood possible. So here's what we do. So first of all, every 1 hour after they, first show interest, we're going to message them again on LinkedIn. 24 hours after they show interest, what we're also going to do is we're going to message them on LinkedIn again, and we're also going to dial them. So we're going to be able to scrape their number. There's multiple different platforms that we can use to do this. A few of them are Prospeo or Contact Out. Those are really good Chrome extensions that you can use to scrape numbers on LinkedIn, and we're going to call them and try and book them in. Now, if they do not pick up the first call, then what we're going to do is we're going to leave them a voice message, and basically what we're going to say in this voice message is, so what we're going to say in this voicemail is we're going to say, hey, I was just calling about an urgent information about company name, and you just say their company name. You can call me back at, and then you say the number you want them to call you back at, and then you repeat it again, just number by number. So 111, 111, 1111, and then you say it again. It was just about, and then you want to just blow into your mic so it sounds like static, and then you hang up the phone. So what they're going to hear on the other side of this voicemail is there's something important. They should call you back at this number, and they don't know what it's about. So the curiosity is going to make them want to call back because they don't know what the call is about, and it could be something urgent about their company. So they're going to want to call you back. And then once they pick up, then you can do the original calling them and basically just booking them in on a call, right? Also, if they do not pick up after the voice note, you're also going to send them a text message, and you're also going to email them. The day after that, you're going to LinkedIn message them again. The day after that, you're going to call them again, and you're going to do the same thing with the text message and the email. You don't have to do the voice note twice. And then we're going to continue to do this for an entire week And we actually have, we found that we've actually been able to convert some people by calling them after a week. So we also continue to call them after a week, but it's extremely intense, right? And about 60% of our bookings actually come from doing this follow-up sequence. And, on average, people get, our clients, when they implement this, they improve their booking rate by just almost double a lot of the times just by implementing the system for multiple reasons. Number one, their speed to lead isn't always the best because a lot of the times the founder is the one responding to DMs in the beginning. And obviously, as a founder yourself, you probably don't have all the time in the world to be, replying to people, which is why, having an automated follow-up system is extremely important. That's reaching out to them on multiple channels. And then also the fact that you're just able to contact them again on multiple touch points, which is going to be extremely, extremely important, which is going to significantly increase your conversion rates by adding this. So we talked about both platforms, some of the pros, some of the cons of each, but let me give you actual strategic advice that you can go implement right now on what you should start using between LinkedIn and cold email and how to scale them both and how I basically did it to get to 100K a month. So depending on your target market, it's going to depend where you should start, whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's email, right? So LinkedIn typically is going to work the best if you are targeting B2B businesses. The reason why is because if you're working with B2B businesses, they also are probably trying to use LinkedIn at some extent, or they're more likely to use LinkedIn to try and get clients themselves. If you're targeting contractors or roofers, for example, their target audience is not on LinkedIn. So why would they be on LinkedIn, right? There's no benefit for them being on LinkedIn. However, if you're targeting recruiters, or if you're targeting agencies, or if you're targeting financial advisors, those people are very highly likely to be on LinkedIn because their prospects are also on LinkedIn and they are targeting other businesses, right? So that's kind of how you want to decide whether or not LinkedIn is going to work for you. The good thing about email is email pretty much works for everyone because everyone has an email. So if you're not targeting B2B businesses, the best way is always to just use email. And if you are targeting B2B businesses, there's kind of a second layer of, what should you start with that I'm going to talk about in a second. So when you're thinking about what platform to start with, it's going to come down to number one, the cost, and number two, the ROI. So this is going to vary at different levels of scale. So in the very beginning, like if you are broke and you have no money, the best way is going to be to just use LinkedIn because it's basically free. You just need a sales nav account, which you can get for a free trial. So it's literally free to do LinkedIn at the start with your own account. Now, if you are not like fully broke, which you're probably not if you're watching this video, the best way to start, I would recommend, is to start with email. So the reason for that is it costs about $400 a month to start. If you're doing it properly, you can cheap your way to doing it, for less, but it will probably not work, right? But that's typically how much it's going to cost to get started. Now, the reason why I would recommend doing email is number one, it's because it's easier to scale. If you're thinking about starting outbound, you may or may not have a primary cold acquisition channel already. The odds are you either have an outbound strategy that isn't working and or you're mostly relying on referrals for your clients. And this is just the fastest way to scale up is by using email, right? And the thing about email as well is it is cheaper to scale up than LinkedIn, even though it's more expensive in the beginning. So obviously, I said before, get started with LinkedIn for completely free. You just need a LinkedIn account and a sales nav account, which you can get for a free trial. And email, you need to pay up front. The problem with LinkedIn from a cost standpoint is when you scale, it gets more expensive because you have to pay for fake LinkedIn accounts or rented LinkedIn accounts. So at this point, in total for LinkedIn at our current level of scale, we pay about $5,000 a month for all the leads, for all the LinkedIn accounts, for the softwares, for everything, the proxies, everything combined. We pay about $5,000 a month. For email, we pay about $2,000 a month. I think it's a little bit less than $2,000 a month. So at scale, it's number one, it's just way easier to scale. You can do it faster. You can make more money faster. And that way you can reinvest into building like a proper LinkedIn infrastructure. But it's also ends up being cheaper at the end once you actually get it to be able to scale, right? So this is how I would actually decide if you're, let's say maybe you're doing both of them or you're thinking about adding one channel over the other. This is how I would decide how to allocate my resources if I'm going to scale one or both of these different methods, right? So first thing, obviously start with LinkedIn until you're not broke, and then you can move on to email. So again, next thing is if you're not broke, which again, you're probably not if you're watching this video, you want to start with email, okay? And what you're going to do is you are not going to do anything else. You're only going to do email until you fully scale it. And the peak level of email, what fully scaling email actually looks like is you are reaching your entire TAM list every single month. What that means is you're going to run email until you have scraped every single email in your entire niche and you are sending them an email every single month. So we are at the point where we have about 60,000, verified emails with personalization attached to them with their verified email account and their phone number. We have about 60,000 marketing agencies, which is the most part who we target, right? And we reach out to, as I said before, we're sending about 2,000 new emails per day, which means we're reaching them every 6 weeks. We're reaching every single marketing agency that exists in North America and Europe. So that is what reaching your TAM every single month actually looks like. Once you have fully maxed that out, then I would recommend going into LinkedIn, just because it's going to be so much easier to nail LinkedIn once you have email set up. The reason for that is because you already have a proven offer, because your email is obviously working in the same niche. You already have the leads. So typically when you're finding emails, you're also going to get their LinkedIn profile depending on where you're scraping from. And from that information, it's very easy just to plug the leads you already have inside of LinkedIn and just send them messages. The only tough part is actually getting the accounts, which if you have the right providers, which we do, is not very difficult. So that's how I would recommend fully scaling your outbound to the max that it can reach. Now, if you want to see how we actually work with agencies and consultants intimately to help them set up email and LinkedIn outbound systems to be able to scale to that million a year mark, just feel free to check out the link in the description. It'll explain everything about our 120 appointment guarantee and how that all works. But other than that, I'll see you back in the video. Now, if you want to use LinkedIn and email in tandem with each other, this is how I would recommend to do it. So the first thing we need to do is we need to actually get all these leads and get this list built out. So what we do is we just go directly from Apollo and then we enrich this information, which I'm going to show you how we actually do that so that you're not just using, shitty Apollo data, right? So we're going to first filter out our list inside of there, download it, and then upload it to our Clay table. So inside of this table, I'm going to show you what this actually does and then, basically walk you through it, right? So we're going to get this information from Apollo. So we're going to get their LinkedIn information. We're going to get their name. We're going to get their business. We're going to be able to get the company name, and we're going to be able to get their website, right? So the first thing that we're going to need to do is we want to actually check whether or not this client is actually a fit. So Apollo, a lot of the time, can give you wrong information on whether or not this person is actually in the industry that you're targeting. So what we're going to do is we're going to use AI to actually go inside of Clay and tell us whether or not, these people actually fit our company criteria that we're looking for. They meet the industry standard that we're actually looking for. So, for example, we're looking to mainly work with marketing agencies, sales agencies, marketing consulting companies, and sales consulting companies, and basically like ROI consultants or marketing agencies, right? And we're just using different keywords that these people might fit into in order to qualify them. Then AI is going to tell us yes if they're a fit, or no if they're not a fit to work with us. If they are, they're going to tell us the exact service that they provide. So that creative marketing, for example, or graphic design or social media marketing or branding, depending on what type of marketing service that they offer. So we can use that to personalize our LinkedIn messages and our email messages, right? And once we have that information, right, what we're going to actually do is we are going to verify their email. So a lot of the time, Apollo will give you emails and they're not actually verified. They're incorrect emails. And what you're doing by sending to those emails is you're going to, go get your emails bounced a lot, which is going to ultimately end up getting your email accounts burned, and then you're not going to be able to send any more emails, which is not good. So we're going to validate these emails. Then once we're actually able to validate these emails using 2 different sources to make sure that it's actually accurate, because a lot of these, data validators are not accurate, then we're going to use multiple different sources to find their email, right? So Apollo will give you maybe like 20% of people's email, which isn't really that good. So we're going to use other sources like Prospeo, for example, to actually find the emails that aren't originally found by Apollo. And not only is this going to get you more emails to send to, but this is also going to get you better emails to send to, because what most people do is they'll just take an Apollo list, send those emails, and then flood those people's inboxes with emails. What this allows you to do is find emails that are outside of Apollo, which is going to be less frequently contacted. So you're going to have higher reply rates by using these methods. Then we're going to verify those emails, and then we're just going to use multiple different sources to actually find those emails, right? Now, once we have a list of qualified emails, so now what we're able to do is we're able to personalize every single message that we're actually sending, so that, when people receive an email from us, they're like, oh, this is, this guy actually didn't just send me an automated message and he took the time to write this. So for example, I checked out your work with Peach Skin Sheets and saw how you achieved 80% year-over-year growth. And I'd love to ask you a question. So this is taking specific case studies from their website and referencing that in a personalized first line that doesn't sound like it's AI or it doesn't sound weird. Then if we can't find a personalization based on a case study or their website, then we'll look based on their recommendations on their LinkedIn profile. And if we can't find any from that, we'll scrape their LinkedIn post and create a personalization based on that. Then what we'll do is we'll take the remaining leads that are a fit for our industry, and we will, I don't have it in this clay sheet specifically, but what we're able to do is we're able to find whether or not they're an open profile, so we can send a free in-mail to them, and then on LinkedIn we're going to be able to send them in-mails. And then we're also able to check if they were recently active on LinkedIn, so we can only target those people on LinkedIn, which is going to significantly increase our connection acceptance rate and increase our positive reply rate, because these people are actually using LinkedIn already. And once we have all of that information together, we can basically filter the people who have an email that is verified and send those people an email. And then we can filter the people who have a LinkedIn that is active, and we can send those people a LinkedIn message. So we can use the exact same list and spread those across multiple different channels to achieve the most amount of outreach possible inside of our niche, so that we can get the most amount of appointments, so that we can get the most amount of clients, and so we can deliver the most amount of results. So after seeing hundreds of agencies at this point try and use both LinkedIn and cold email, I want to share some of the biggest mistakes that I tend to see. So the number one biggest mistake that kills agencies when it comes to scaling their outbound a lot of the times is just fear and not knowing their numbers. So what I mean by that is it's so often that an agency will come to me, or, after they implement the system that, I help them build when working with me, that they'll come to one of my coaching calls and they'll be like, Josh, how do I improve my metrics? Thinking that that's the way to improve their booking rate or improve the amount of clients that they're getting, when really 90% of the times the answer is increasing the amount of messages that you're sending, and they're thinking of the question wrong. Instead of asking, how can I improve the conversion rate on my messages, you want to be asking, how can I get the most amount of appointments possible? And the easiest way to do that 90% of the time is to scale what you already have. Now, how do you know whether or not it's worth actually scaling what you have, or whether or not you should just improve what you're currently doing? Because there is a time and a place for both of those. The answer to that is knowing your numbers and knowing your ROI on the amount that you spend for your LinkedIn and for your email outreach. So I want to give you an example here. So let's say you're spending $500 a month on cold email infrastructure, and you have a 0.5% appointment booking rate, meaning you're booking 1 in every 200 new emails that you send, and you're sending about 100 emails a day. What that would mean is overall in a month, you're sending about 2,200 emails, and you're booking 11 meetings. Let's say from those 11 meetings, you close 2 people for a retainer of $2K a month, right? So overall, let's say your client stays on for 5 months, you made $20K from those 2 deals over the lifetime of that client. So a lot of the times, some people will be scared about spending, doubling the amount they're spending on cold email, going from $500 a month to $1,000 a month, to double the amount of emails they're sending. But that's going to be scary in and of itself if you don't understand the ROI that it's bringing. But if you see that it brought you 2 clients that, made you $20K, and you can understand that that is directly attributed to the $500 that you spent initially, you can, with so much more confidently, double the amount, triple the amount that you're spending on cold email, which is why we were able to scale so quickly. And that's the biggest misconception that people have when they're trying to scale their outbound campaigns. The biggest problem I see specifically with LinkedIn, with people's conversion rates, if the issue is they're not converting enough people, is number one, they're not utilizing in-mails. So a lot of the time people just send connection requests, and then they'll send messages to those people, and they'll think that's good enough. It's not. You need to be using in-mails as well. That's going to make up 50% of the volume that you're able to get on LinkedIn. The second thing that most people get wrong on LinkedIn is they're not doing enough follow-up, and they're not doing omni-channel follow-up, which is what I talked about before. And they're thinking that a 10-minute session time and a 15% response time is good enough, which it isn't. You need to be responding to every message, ideally within 5 minutes. And if you can't, you need to be following up with them on every single channel that's available by scraping other information like their phone number and their email. With email, the biggest thing that I see is typically what will happen is people will have a really good email, positive reply rate to start, or like decent enough, not necessarily great. But then what will happen, it will deteriorate and it will get worse and worse and worse and worse. And what people won't understand is most of the time, it's not due to the script. It's not due to your leads not being interested anymore. Most of the time, it's due to deliverability. And the way that you can check that is instantly as a pretty cool feature, which it's basically a deliverability text. It's an inbox placement test. That's a feature inside of Instantly that you can just use, and you can see exactly which one of your emails are going to spam and which ones are not. And then you have to replace those immediately as you see them go to spam. And we do those tests internally for ourselves about twice every month. So we do it every other week. Now, realistically, most people, when they start working with us and they actually implement the systems that we have, they tend to see about 30 to 50 appointments per month within, the first 2 to 3 months of actually implementing the system. And that's, pretty accurate. And then from there, scaling it becomes pretty easy because, like I said before, it's just about sending more messages. But a lot of the times, once they start, consistently getting these appointments, then they start to have, issues with, fulfillment, and then they don't have enough account reps to take on all these clients, and then they need to hire those people, and then they can scale their cold outreach once again, right? So that's typically the biggest mistakes that I see and how long it actually takes to get results using these systems. So which platform is going to get you the most amount of clients? And ultimately the answer is by using both of them together, because that is going to allow you to, number one, scale quickly with email, but number two, have extremely high conversion rates with LinkedIn when you use multiple different channels to reach the same type of people. The agencies that are able to figure out how to use both channels as one integrated system are the ones that are able to dominate their market and dominate their niche in 2025. So if you want help setting up this dual channel approach within your agency with our 120 appointment in 120 day guarantee, there's a lot more information on how that works in the description. So I'll see you guys next time.